Alright, what is up you guys, and welcome back to the 98 English course. In today's recording we're going to be going over Unit 10, Nutrition and Health. So as always, we start with the key vocabulary, right? And then we'll move on to listening. So here we have bag, bottle, box, calories, case, cause, decrease, dramatic, exercise, fall, food poisoning, fresh, fridge, hard cheese, gradual, healthy, increase, jar, notice, piece, raw, red meat, refrigerator, restaurant, rise, sharp, significant, slice, smoke, smoking, soap, soft cheese, standout, take exercise, tip, toothbrush, unhealthy, wrap, wrapping. Okay? So that was the key vocabulary. Now let's hop into listening. Here we have exercise A, where compares and add words to the categories below. Just a simple exercise to get us started with the unit. So here we have, just add words to the categories below. So for meat, what can we, like any other examples for meat besides chicken? Yes, we could say beef, we could say pork, we could also say bacon. All of these are examples of meat, right? So this will be entirely up to you. You could use your own words, whatever you like. For fish, I'll say tuna and salmon as well. Right? For fruit, we could say apple, orange, pineapple, watermelon, etc. Right? Vegetables, we have potato. We could also say tomato, cucumbers, and carrots. Right? Dairy, we could say cheese and yogurt. And for other basics, I'll talk about grains. So we have rice, I'll say corn, pasta, etc. Okay? So that was exercise A. Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have listen and write each food the speaker describes in your notebook. Right, so this is what I want you guys to do. Take out a sticky note or your notebook if you have one and write each food that you hear in the notebook below, okay? And check your spelling after the audio is over, okay? So here we go.
131. Unit 10. Nutrition and Health. Lesson 1. Listening. Exercise B. Listen. Write each food the speaker describes in your notebook.
1. People eat this all over the world, but especially in China, Japan and India. People usually eat it with some kind of meat or vegetables. 2. You put this in tea or coffee to make it taste sweet. Some people put it on cereal. 3. This is 2 pieces of bread with something in the middle, perhaps meat or cheese. 4. These are small pieces of potato fried in oil. People eat them with fish or burgers. Some people eat them every day, but they're not very healthy. 5. Some people say they're fruit. Some people say they're vegetables. They're soft and round and bright red. People eat them in a salad.
Alright, so the speaker described each food but didn't say its name. So 1 was actually rice. That'll be R-I-C-E, right? 2, obvious, you put it in tea and coffee. Sugar, S-U-G-A-R, right? And then she described sandwich, right? S-A-N-D-W-I-C-H, right? And 4, chips, C-H-I-P-S. And finally, tomatoes, T-O-M-A-T-O-E-S. Okay, so that was each food. I hope you were able to at least get a few of them based on the description of the speaker, but if not, hey, it's fine. Now, Let's go to exercise C. Here we have, look at table 1. Do you know all the food items? Can you pronounce each one correctly? Right, so do you know all of these different foods, you guys? If not, pause the video right now and actually start saying them out loud and research them for a bit, right? I'll say them quickly and then we'll move to the to C2, okay? So we have bread, butter, hard cheese, soft cheese, coffee, eggs, cooked fish, jam, cooked meat, raw fresh meat, raw fresh fish, milk, potatoes, cooked rice, salt, tea, and vegetables. Okay, oops, I don't know what happened, that's fine. Okay, so what is the difference between soft cheese and hard cheese? Well, soft cheese is usually in a plastic container. When you go to the store and you get soft cheese, it's usually placed in a plastic container, and you could just use a spoon or a knife to spread it on bread. But on the other hand, hard cheese is usually cut into pieces or slices that you just take and add it to your sandwich or salad or whatever, etc. Okay? These are the two different kinds of cheese. What is the difference between raw and fresh, like we saw here? Raw meat and cooked, or fresh and raw. Right, so raw is basically uncooked. Okay? So raw means uncooked. So raw fish means uncooked fish. While fresh means natural. Okay? Not in a packet, not in a can. Okay? So for example, when there's fresh fish, right, straight out of the sea that you buy from the store, this is considered fresh, right? It's not raw and it's not in a packet or a can. Okay? I know, although, in Japan and Asian places, people like raw fish that is not cooked, like sushi, for example. I heard a lot of people talk about sushi and how they liked it. I personally haven't gotten the chance to try it yet, but I heard that it's good. I don't know how that's possible, but I guess I'll try it sometime soon. Right, C4. What do you do with food if you wrap it? Well, if you wrap food, it means that you put plastic or silver foil around it, right? You just around it. I think we have a picture here, actually. Yes, right here. So you add plastic or a silver foil around it, usually to protect it or to store it for later. You get the idea, okay? So that's table 1 for now. We'll get back to it later. Now let's move on to exercise D. Look at the food and drinks item and the food and drink items below, right? Mark each item healthy or unhealthy, right? And this is gonna greatly, your opinion might vary here. Although some things might be clear, there's always an opinion because there's no solid healthy or unhealthy way of eating. It's all food, but it depends on how much, right? How much becomes too much, okay? So let's take salad, for example. Salad doesn't have too many calories, right? And it's full of good nutrients for your body. So we'll say that it's considered H, healthy, okay? Coffee. Coffee could be used as a tool to help you stay awake longer, plus it tastes good, but it could make you nervous, right, if you drink too much of it, right? It could also cause insomnia in some people, it depends, right? And adding too much sugar might cause diabetes down the line. So this will be up to you, but for me, as someone that drinks coffee regularly but tries to use it in a healthy manner, I'd give this an H, as in healthy. Okay? Milk, again, similar to coffee, but too much of it and you've got a problem, and too little of it and you've also got a problem. So a good balance is needed. So we'll say H. Okay? Fresh fruit, I'd call this an H. Fresh fruit is pretty good. Fruit juice. Again, fruit juice, your own personal opinion. Some have loads of sugar, but for most it's not. We'll give this an H, healthy. Raw vegetables, healthy, no questions asked. Burgers, again, could be unhealthy if you considered all the oil and the bread and the soda that you eat with it. But, I mean, if you grill burgers, they're not that bad. But hey, according to society, burgers are the worst. So we'll give that a U, unhealthy. Cola's unhealthy. No questions asked about that. Fresh fish. Again, fresh fish is healthy. There's nothing wrong with fresh fish. Okay? If you're in class, compare with your partner if you guys did this exercise before listening to me. If not, hey, it's fine. Now let's go to skills check using the word too much. Okay, so these two sentences have a similar meaning, but there's an important difference. So we have, he drinks a lot of coffee and he drinks too much coffee. Well, they have a very similar meaning, right? They both tell us that this person is drinking a lot of coffee, right? Or too much coffee. But the difference here is that when I say a lot of, I'm talking about him drinking a lot of coffee, a large amount of coffee, right? But when I say he drinks too much coffee, I'm telling people that there's a problem, right? He's drinking too much coffee, that's a problem. This could deteriorate his health down the line, okay? So again, one more time, when I say a lot of, I'm talking in general. Hey, he drinks a lot of coffee, a large amount of coffee, but hey, I don't care if there's a problem, if there's not a problem, not my place, right? But if I say, hey, he drinks too much coffee, he eats too much pizza, that means that, hey, I think there's a problem and we might need to help him, okay? And again, similar to the last or previous lessons when we talked about countable and uncountable nouns, we use much and many, but in this case, if we want to talk about a problem, we'll say too much and too many, okay? So again, we use too much with uncountable nouns and too many with countable nouns, okay? So he eats too much red meat, right? I do not count red meat, so I'll say he eats too much red meat, implying that there's a problem, and that problem is that he eats too much red meat, right? She eats too many sweets. Again, I said many because sweets are countable, and too many implying that there's a problem and we might need to fix it. Okay? So that is the difference between a lot of, too much, or too many. Okay? When do we say too much and when do we say too many? Again, too much with uncountable nouns and too many with countable nouns. Okay? Excuse me. Now let's go to exercise E. You're going to hear a short talk about food safety. Right. What can you see in the pictures and why will the lecturer mention them? Right, so in the first photo we have someone wrapping food, right? Why do I think the lecturer mention them? Well, I think we use this to store food for later and to keep it fresh, right, for longer. And two, here we have a refrigerator, and I guess the lecturer will mention it because we, again, could keep fresh food and cooked food longer, right? We could keep it fresh and cooked longer and dramatically slow down the process of decaying of foods. Okay? Now let's listen and check. Now we're going to be listening to the audio here and we'll see what this is all about. So here we go.
132. Exercise E3. Listen and check. When the lecturer pauses, say the next word.
At one time, people only ate fresh food and cooked food very quickly. They couldn't keep it for more than
1 or 2 days?
1 or 2 days.
Yep.
But today, we have 2 things in our homes to help us keep
Fresh food and cooked
fresh
food?
food and cooked food. Firstly, we have the
Refrigerator.
refrigerator. Of course, most people just call it a fridge nowadays. In 1856, an Australian called James Harrison produced the first refrigerator. A box with a constant temperature of around
I don't know.
4 degrees centigrade.
Okay.
Secondly, we have
Plastic wrapping.
Plastic wrapping for food. In 1933, an American called Ralph Wiley discovered PVC. After the Second World War, people began to use it to wrap
Fresh food and cooked food.
fresh food and cooked food. Fridges and plastic wrapping mean we can keep fresh food and cooked food for quite a long
Time. Right, so a simple talk about food safety and what we use nowadays to keep our food safe, or rather stop the decaying process for a lot longer. Okay? Now let's go to let's go to exercise F. Again, look at table 1. So we'll have to go back to table 1 again. Let's see what we have here. We have which food items can you keep for a long time, write no limit under days, and which food items can you only keep for 1 day, write 1 under days. Okay? So let's listen to the next part of the talk and check, and we'll just listen to both of these and then we'll complete the table. So here we go.
133. Exercise F3. Listen to the next part of the talk and check.
So, how long can we keep fresh food and cooked food for? Well, for some things, there is really no limit. If we keep them in a cool, dry place. Salt, for example, and coffee and tea. At the other end of the scale, we can only keep cooked meat and fish for 1 day in a refrigerator, and we must wrap it.
Alright, let's go to audio number 2.
134. Exercise F4. Listen to the final part and complete the table.
We can keep fresh meat and fish for longer. 2 days for fish, 3 to 4 days for meat. Vegetables also keep for 3 to 4 days. Cooked rice keeps a little longer, 4 to 5 days. Milk keeps for 5 days, while bread, butter, and soft cheese keep for about a week, 7 days. Hard cheese, by the way, is different. It keeps for up to 3 months, that is, 90 days. Eggs keep in a refrigerator for quite a long time, 3 weeks or 21 days. Finally, jam and potatoes keep for 6 months or 180 days.
Alright, so here we have some foods that the speaker was talking about, and the days, the maximum amount of days that they can be in the refrigerator or before decaying is, we'll say for bread was 7 days, right? For butter it was also 7 days, so a week. Hard cheese actually could stay good for 90 days. Soft cheese, on the other hand, only stays for a week, 7 days. Okay? And what about coffee, you guys? What is the maximum amount of days for coffee? That's right, we'll say no limit. Coffee does not go bad. Okay? Right. What about eggs? Eggs could stay good for 21 days. Cooked fish, you have to eat it. Cooked fish stays for a day maximum. Jam stays for, I think, about 6 months or 180 days in this case. Right? Cooked meat, again, 1 day, eat it same day as you cook it. Raw, or also called fresh meat, that stays for around 3 to 4 days. Fish, no, raw fish stays for 2 days. Milk stays for about 5 days. Potatoes, again, about 6 months or 180 days. Cooked rice could stay for 4 to 5 days. Salt, again, what do you guys think? Salt has no limit. Could keep it around for a long, long time. And tea, also, no limit, right? And vegetables, again, 3 to 4 days. Okay, so one more time: bread, 7 days; butter, 7 days; hard cheese, 90 days; soft cheese, 7 days; coffee, no limit; eggs, 21 days; cooked fish, 1 day, jam 180 days, cooked meat 1 day, raw fresh meat 3 to 4 days, raw fresh fish 2 days, milk 5 days, potatoes 180 days, cooked rice 4 to 5 days, salt no limit, tea no limit, vegetables 3 to 4 days. Okay, so I think that's about it. That was listening, you guys. Now let's move on to speaking. Right, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 2, speaking. Here we have, look at the cartoon. What do you think it is about? Alright, so this picture right here, this simple animation, what do you guys think it's about? Well, personally, I think it's about food poisoning, right? You can see that this is some sort of a germ or a bacteria, right? And it looks like it's going to cause food poisoning, right? So let's go to exercise B. Here we have answer the questions below in pairs, right? So what are some causes of food poisoning, you guys? So I'm pretty sure all or most of us know what food poisoning is, but what are some causes of food poisoning? Well, the first one that comes to my mind is that eating food that is simply bad and not fresh, right? Basically eating old food, right? Also, not washing food or not washing your hands properly when preparing food, right? It's very important to wash food and also wash your hands before eating and before even preparing a good or any meal, right? One thing that could also cause food poisoning is not cooking food properly, right? Leaving food not cooked properly could cause food poisoning, okay? You could also leave food in a warm place for too long and then eat it. This also causes food poisoning. Okay, so all of these are different causes for food poisoning. Please let me know if you have any other causes, if you know of any other causes that cause food poisoning. Okay, now let's go to B2. Here we have, where do people get food poisoning most Right, so where do people get food poisoning most frequently? For example, at home or in a restaurant? Well, let's go to the graph here. We have figure 2, right? Here we have a ball, and it shows us the percentage of places where food poisoning occurs. And the biggest percentage is restaurants, right? At 52%. So that means that in our homes, food is cleaner, and the risk of food poisoning is, in this case, lower, or I should say much lower. Okay, so where do people get food poisoning most frequently? We'll say restaurants. Can you name any types of food poisoning? Well, there are 2 that I know of. They're right here. So, E. coli and Salmonella. Okay, these are 2 types of food poisoning. Okay. Is food poisoning more or less common now? Well, let's go to figure 1 here, right? Here we have this figure, right? This is the year from 1996 to 2008, right? These are the number of cases of food poisoning in New York City per 100,000 people, okay? So, back in 1996, it was really high. This looks like it's 54, right? So 54 cases, right? And if we go all the way, right, obviously there are changes along the way, but right around here, we'll say at around 2008 or late 2007, we'll say that it's definitely gone down, but it looks like it's on the rise again, you guys, right? So it went all the way down, right? Then there was a dramatic or a sharp return, right? And all of these, it basically kept coming and going, and then it stopped. This was the lowest, so the lowest amount of cases was back in 2005, late 2005, right? And then it started to go back up again, right? So I think it's on the rise, but it's less common now, okay? So again, now let's go to exercise C. Look at the figures below. What does each one show? Right, so like we said, this graph right here shows cases of food poisoning in New York City per 100,000 people, right? Or New York rather. So again, number of cases and how it moves, right, over time. Figure 2 has the places where food poisoning occurs. So we have the percentage for each place. We have restaurants, home, schools, and unknown and other places. Okay? And finally, we have cases of E. coli and Salmonella, right? From 2006 to 2010. Okay, so these are the names of food poisoning. Okay, so like we said here, these are 2 types of food poisoning. Okay, now let's go to exercise D. Here we have listen to some students and match each extract with a figure. Right, so let's go.
135. Lesson 2. Speaking. Exercise D. Listen to some students.
Extract A.
So, what information stands out when you look at this figure?
Well, over half of all cases of food poisoning are in restaurants.
Yes, I noticed that too. I was quite surprised. Fewer people get food poisoning at home. I guess people at home are more hygienic than people working in restaurants.
Extract B.
So, what about this figure? Did you notice anything in particular?
Well, cases of food poisoning decreased over the complete period. However, they increased again at the end of the period.
Yes, that's true. Why was there a dramatic rise in 2001? Why was there a sharp fall the next year?
I have no idea. Perhaps there was a specific problem, like E. coli a few years ago.
Extract C.
It's obvious. The number of cases of E. coli decreased over the period, while the number of cases of Salmonella increased.
Yes, the increase was gradual from 2006 to 2009. Then there was a sharp rise in 2010.
Alright, so now that we got more information about each figure here, by the way, this is pronounced as E. coli and not E. coli, that's my bad. Okay, so cases of E. coli and Salmonella, right? Here we have match each extract with a figure. So extract A, that we're talking about figure 2 on places where food poisoning occurs, so we'll say extract A is 2, right? And extract B, that we're talking about cases of food poisoning, right, in New York per 100,000 people from 1996 to 2008. So we'll say 1. And extract C, they were talking about cases of E. coli and Salmonella. Okay, so 3. Alright, so this was exercise D. Now let's move on. Here we have read the extracts below. Before we do that, let's go to the skills check 1. Here we have referring to graphs and charts. This will show us how to talk and describe graphs, right? So we have several ways. When using verbs, we could say an increase or decrease, right? We could also say rise and rose. Rose is past. Fall and fell, right? So again, there's an increase, right? There's a decrease. Okay, I could also say rise or rose if I'm talking in the past, right? And or fall or fell if I'm talking in the past. Okay? If I want to change it to a noun, I'll add an, right? So a or an. So in this case, there was an increase. You see what I did there? There was an increase, right? There was a rise in the population, okay? There was a decrease. There was a fall in the population of, and I'll keep going. Okay? What about, here are some adjectives that we use with this type of chart, okay, or a graph. So this is a slight change, right, or a slight increase or a slight decrease, okay? This is a slight, and this is a gradual, and this is a sharp / dramatic, okay? We also heard it when we were listening to some students here. So this right here is a sharp or dramatic increase, right? This right here looks like it's, what was it? It was a gradual, right? So it was a gradual increase. It was not a sharp one like whew, all the way up or all the way down, okay? This is considered a sharp increase, or in this case decrease, and this is considered a gradual increase, okay? What about the last one? Slight. We have a slight, this slight bend right here, okay? So in this case, we'll say that this is a slight decrease, all right? So one more time, this is when referring to the graph, we can say slight if it looks like this, a gradual if it's moving slowly, and if it goes all the way up or all the way down, it's called sharp, or a sharp increase, or a sharp decrease, or a dramatic increase or decrease. Okay? There are also typical words and phrases to talk and ask about data from graphs, right? So if you want to say something that's obvious or clear, you could say, it's clear that there was an increase in this and that, this and that. You could also say, it's obvious that dash had an increase recently. You could say that, right? For questions, you could also say, what do you notice? Or what stands out, right? What is different from all of these? Do you notice anything different? Okay? So all of these are typical phrases and questions that you could use to talk and ask about data. Okay? Now let's go to exercise E. Here we have, can you remember the words in each space? Listen again and check right in the missing words. Alright, so we're going to play this and I'll try and write the words as we go. If not, then I'll write it after the audio is over. So here we go.
136. Exercise E2. Listen again and check. Write in the missing words.
So, what information stands out when you look at this figure?
Well, over half of all cases of food poisoning are in restaurants.
Yes, I noticed that too. I was quite surprised. Fewer people get food poisoning at home. I guess people at home are more hygienic than people working in restaurants.
Extract B.
So, what about this figure? Did you notice anything in particular?
Well, cases of food poisoning decreased over the complete period. However, they increased again at the end of the period.
Yes, that's true. Why was there a dramatic rise in 2001? Why was there a sharp fall the next year?
I have no idea. Perhaps there was a specific problem, like E. coli a few years ago.
Extract C.
It's obvious. The number of cases of E. coli decreased over the period, while the number of cases of salmonella increased.
Yes, the increase was gradual from 2006 to 2009. Then there was a sharp rise in 2010.
Right, so if you guys notice, this is exactly what we said in skills check. So if you read it, you'll notice that we talked about decrease and increase, right? The words like notice, anything in particular, stands out. All of these are questions to ask and talk about graphs, okay? So these three extracts are about the graphs, okay? So what information stands out when you look at this picture? Well, over half of all cases of food poisoning are in restaurants. Yes, I noticed that too. I was quite surprised. Fewer people get food poisoning at home. I guess people at home are more hygienic than people working in restaurants. So, what about this figure? Did you notice anything in particular? Well, cases of food poisoning decreased over the complete period. However, they increased again at the end of the period. Yes, that's true. Why was there a dramatic rise in 2001? Why was there a sharp fall the next year? I have no idea. Perhaps there was a specific problem, like E. coli a few years ago. It's obvious. We can see that the number of cases of E. coli decreased over the period, while the number of cases of salmonella increased. Yes, the increase was gradual. Remember gradual, you guys? From 2006 to 2009. Then there was a sharp rise in 2010. Okay? Now let's move on. Here we have skills check 2, the words more, less, and fewer. So we use words like more, okay, with countable and uncountable nouns, okay? So the word more is again used with countable and uncountable nouns. Both. You could use the word more with both. So more food, more people, more water, all of these are okay. We use the word fewer with countable nouns, while we use the word less with uncountable nouns, okay? So if I want to add more to nouns, I'll say more with both countable and uncountable, right? But if I want to say less, I'll only use that with uncountable, and I'll say fewer with countable nouns, okay? So uncountable, for example, less food, less money, less meat, less rice, okay? For fewer, I could say fewer people, fewer calories, fewer apples, fewer oranges. You get the idea, okay? Now let's go to skills check 3, reacting to information. Here we have two phrases that you could use to react to information. One thing that a lot of people getting started with English don't know is how to react to the information given to them, right? So if something surprises you, you could say, wow, I was surprised. Or you could just say, hey, I was surprised that I saw this go up or this go down. The thing is that you're reacting by being surprised, right? So in this case, we have figures, so you could say the figure was surprising. You could also say, I did not expect such a sharp turn, okay? You did not expect shows that you were surprised as well, okay? Now let's go to exercise F. Here we have work in pairs, practice extract 1, right? You'll have to do these if you're in class, okay? Again, so go back to extract 1, swap roles and practice again, right? And what else can you say about figure 2? So we talked about figure 2 briefly. Talk more about figure 2, right? What else do you see, right? Do you see any extra information that you could talk about? Okay? And you could repeat the process with the whole process again with the other two extracts and figures. Okay? And then we have exercise G, work in groups of 4. Again, if you're in class, do this. Go online to find a graph or chart related to nutrition and health. Alright, so go on Google and find a graph or chart that's related to nutrition and health, whether that's coffee drinking, meat eating, smoking. I know vaping's a good one right now, heart disease, etc. You get the idea, right? You could make a copy of the graph or chart and give a short talk. Obviously, plan your talk. We talked a lot before about how to plan your talk and ways to get ready for a talk, and give a short one, right? It does not need to be 15-20 minutes long. You're not a lecturer. Just give a short talk about the graph or chart. Okay? So that was speaking, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 3, vocabulary and pronunciation. So here we have exercise A, mark the nouns below countable, C, or uncountable, U. Okay, so first we have cheese. Is cheese countable or uncountable, you guys? That's correct. Cheese is uncountable, right? What about eggs or an egg? Egg is countable, okay? Butter, obviously uncountable. Carrot is countable, right? Rice is not countable. You'd take forever to count a whole plate, right? What about milk? Milk is liquid, so uncountable. And finally, bottle. Bottle is countable. Okay? So cheese, uncountable. Egg, countable. Butter, uncountable. Carrot, countable. Rice, uncountable. Milk, uncountable. And bottle, countable. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have, look at the pictures. What is the difference between A and B in each pair, right? So here we have a pair of A and B pictures in A and B here as well. What is the difference? Right. So in the first pair, photograph A is uncountable, right? We're talking about a type of meat called lamb, right? It's a type of meat, okay? And when talking about it here, it's uncountable, but in the second photo, it is countable, right? So if I say some lamb, I'm obviously talking about meat. But if I say a lamb, I'm talking about it as a living creature, okay? A here is capital, right? We're talking about ice cream, right? So it is not countable, but in the second picture, ice cream is countable. And we'll talk about that later, how we can turn nouns from countable to uncountable and vice versa. Okay? So an ice cream here, or two ice creams, and in the first picture, it's just ice cream uncountable. Okay? Could you think of any more pairs like these? Well, we could say chocolate and a chocolate. Okay? These could also work. I could also say cake and a cake. Also works. Okay? Now let's go to exercise C. Look at the picture and read the dialogue below. Right? So guess the words in each space. Write one or two words. Okay. So we're gonna play it first. Okay? And then we'll read it and write the missing words as we go. So here we go.
137. Lesson 3. Vocabulary and Pronunciation. Exercise C2. Listen and check.
So, what do we need?
Well, we're making bolognese and pasta. We certainly need some meat.
Okay, how much?
It's for 4 people, so quite a lot. Perhaps about 2 kilos.
Okay, let's take this pack. It's 2.2 kilos. Do we need to buy pasta?
I don't think so. There's quite a lot at home. I bought some a few days ago.
What about vegetables?
Yes, we need tomatoes, onions and mushrooms.
Fresh tomatoes or in a tin?
Tin tomatoes are best for bolognese.
So, how many tins?
Let's get 3.
Okay, where are the fresh vegetables?
Over here.
Right. How many onions do we need?
A few, 3 or 4, I guess.
Okay, and mushrooms?
We need quite a lot of mushrooms. This pack looks about right. Oh, we need olive oil too.
I think we've got some at home.
No, there's only a little in the bottle. We need some more.
Okay, where can we find that then?
I think it's next to...
Alright, so that was the audio. Okay, now let's read it again and write the missing words down. So, what do we need? Well, we're making bolognese and pasta, so we certainly need some meat. Okay, so we'll say some here. Okay, how much? Okay, how much, because meat is uncountable. It's for 4 people, so quite, we'll say a lot. Okay, quite a lot, perhaps about 2 kilos. Okay, okay, let's take this pack. It's 2.2 kilos. Do we need to buy pasta? I don't think so. Excuse me. There's quite, we'll say, a lot at home. I bought some a few days ago. What about vegetables? Yes, we need tomatoes, onions, and mushrooms. Fresh tomatoes are in a tin. Tinned tomatoes are best for bolognese. So, we'll say how many. Okay, tins are countable, so how many tins? Let's get 3. Okay, where are the fresh vegetables? Over here. Right? How many onions do we need? Okay, we'll say, I think she said, no, she actually said a few, right? Then she sort of gives this sound, right? And then 3 or 4, I guess. Okay, and mushrooms, we need quite a lot of mushrooms. This pack looks about right. Oh, we need olive oil too. I think we've got some at home. Okay, some olive oil at home. No, there's only, we'll say, a little in the bottle. We need some more. So, more's already written, my bad. Okay, where can we find that then? I think it's next to, and the conversation goes on. Okay, so which words go with only countable nouns, you guys? Well, we could say words such as many, more, and a few, right? These words could go with countable nouns. What about uncountable nouns? Well, we could use words like less, much, and little with uncountable nouns. Okay? So both countable and uncountable nouns, so it depends, and we'll talk about this in a second, but we could use a word like some, for example, for both countable and uncountable nouns. Okay? So now let's move on. Here we have exercise D. Before we move on, let's go to let's go to skills check 1 first. Countable and uncountable nouns. So nouns are either, we know this, countable or uncountable. And you've got to know, since we're on the topic of food, is that many food nouns are actually uncountable. Okay? So pasta is uncountable, coffee is uncountable, milk is uncountable, right? Oil is uncountable. Okay? So some examples, we have countable and uncountable. There are some potatoes. There are a lot of apples. How much milk is actually wrong? It's supposed to be uncountable, right? Milk and much are clear clues that this should be uncountable. How many eggs is countable? And a few tomatoes. Okay? Uncountable here is there's some pasta, there's a lot of coffee, how much milk, and a little oil. Okay? Some nouns have a countable and uncountable meaning, like we just talked about, remember? So for example, like we said, if I say a lamb, that's an animal, right? Hey, that's countable. I have 2 lambs in my, for example, I don't know, in my farm, right? But if I say some lamb, then I'm obviously talking about meat. Okay? So it could be both countable and uncountable, just like chocolate. Okay? We can make an uncountable noun countable. Okay? So for example, if we say a bottle of water, a glass of juice, piece of cake, a slice of bread, a case of food poisoning, right? Well, I know that, hey, bread is uncountable, so what am I going to do to change it into a countable noun? Well, I'll add these words right here. For example, slice, glass, bottle, a piece of, a case of, a jar of, a box of. I have to add that word of in order to change it from uncountable into countable. Okay? Now let's go to exercise D. Match the phrases on the left with the words below. So here we have a bottle of. What do we use the phrase a bottle of? Right? What do we use the words or the phrase a bottle of with, you guys? That's correct. We use it with liquids. Okay? So a bottle of water, a bottle of lemonade, a bottle of wine, a bottle of olive oil. Okay? Excuse me. 2, we have a box of. Well, what do we use a box of with? Well, we use it with chocolates, biscuits, toys, and tools. Okay? So a box of chocolates, a box of biscuits, a box of toys, and a box of tools. Okay? 3, we have a jar of. Okay? So we use a jar of with things that are obviously in a jar. So in this case, jam, marmalade, honey, and peanut butter. Okay? A bag of. Okay? So a bag of things that are obviously in a bag. If we're talking about foods, that'll be sweets, flour, potatoes, coffee beans, etc. Okay? A piece of. Okay? Again, a piece of here will probably mean that we're talking about cake, cheese, wood. I don't know how wood and cloth fit into these, but hey, it's fine. A piece of wood. Hey, it's not wrong. I was just thinking that, hey, we're about food and health and nutrition. So a piece of cake, a piece of cheese, a piece of wood, and a piece of cloth. Okay? And a slice, right? We use a slice with things that could be sliced. Okay? So a slice of bread, a slice of ham, a slice of lemon, a slice of cheese. We can also say a slice of pizza, for example. Okay? So these were the phrases. I think you guys should memorize these. I know, stop for a bit, write them down because these are important you should be able to distinguish between the phrases, okay? So you should know when to use a bottle of, a box of, a jar of, a bag of, a piece of, and a slice of. It'll help you dramatically even when speaking on your own, okay? Now let's move on. Here we have Skills Check 2. This is a simple exercise, weak forms of common grammatical words. So this will be we'll be focusing on your pronunciation here. So short grammatical words often have a weak form in conversation. Words like do, and, of, for, and some. Okay, you just gotta know how to pronounce them quickly in conversation. Okay, that's what we call a weak form. Okay, now let's go to exercise E. Here we have, how do we say each of the underlined words, and what do the words have in common? Okay, so let's read them together. We have, so what do we need? Well, we're making bolognese and pasta. We certainly need some meat. Okay, how much? It's for people, so quite a lot, perhaps about 2 kilos. Okay, let's take this pack. It's 2.2 kilos. Do we need to buy pasta? I don't think so. There's quite a lot at home. Right. So that's how we say all of these words. Let's listen now, and then we'll see what do the words have in common. So here we go.
138. Exercise E3. Listen and check.
So, what do we need?
Well, we're making bolognese and pasta. We certainly need some meat.
Okay, how much?
It's for 4 people, so quite a lot. Perhaps about 2 kilos.
Okay, let's take this pack. It's 2.2 kilos. Do we need to buy pasta?
I don't think so. There's quite a lot at home.
Right, so what do the words, all of these words, have in common? Well, you guys should know that it's literally written in the skills check. All of these are all pronounced as weak forms, okay? So all of these words are pronounced as weak forms. These are common grammatical words, and they're all pronounced as weak forms, okay? Now let's go to exercise F. Again, work in pairs if you're in class, or if you want to do this with a mate. Doesn't matter, right? Invent dialogue. Now this is where things get interesting. You're gonna do your own dialogue. You're not gonna get one from the lesson. So decide on something that you want to cook. I'm personally a big fan of pizza, so let's say I want to cook pizza. Make a list of ingredients, right? We could say cheese, I need salsa, I need bread, I need yeast, right? And check any words that you don't know in a dictionary. So if you know any of the ingredients in your own language but you don't know it, hey, Google is your best friend, right? Write a dialogue like the one in exercise C, so one that looks like this, okay? And practice your dialogue and make sure you pronounce the weak forms that we talked about correctly. And hey, if you're done with it, go ahead and read it out loud to your class, okay? So that was vocab and pronunciation, you guys. Now let's move on to reading. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 4 reading. Here we have exercise A. Cover the text on the opposite page. Read the heading and subheading of the text below. Right, so let's go over here. Here we have the heading and subheading, right? We have, how can I stay healthy? We asked 100 doctors for their tips on staying healthy. Here are the top 5 tips and some research results with each tip. Right, so does anybody know what does the word tip mean? Right? Well, a tip is basically a piece of advice, right? A tip is usually given by somebody that has knowledge of the subject. So think of it as a piece of advice given to you by somebody that has specific knowledge of a certain subject. Okay? What do you think the top 5 tips will be? Compare your ideas with other students. Right, so I know that the top 5 tips will be about staying healthy, right? So here we have 5 of them. So don't smoke, don't eat too many sweets, don't lie in the sun, take exercise every day, and go to bed early twice a week. Okay? Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have read the headings of each section below. Like we just said, what is the missing keyword in each one? Right, so let's go down here to the text. Here we have don't smoke, right? So we'll say don't smoke, okay? Don't eat too many sweets, okay? Don't eat too many sweets. Don't eat, no, we have don't lie in the sun. So don't lie in the, we'll write sun, okay? I think 4 was take exercise every day, right? And finally, go to bed early. Go to bed, we'll say early, oops, EA, early twice a week, okay? So what will the advice be in each section? Okay, so for the first section we have don't smoke, so it'll probably be advice and a few tips on why you shouldn't smoke, right? And tips showing that smoking, I'm guessing, kills people, a certain amount of people, and causes lung cancer, etc. We know the drill with smoking, okay? Don't eat too many sweets, similar to smoking. Again, tips and tricks on why you shouldn't eat too many sweets, right? And again, what might happen to your body if you eat too many sweets, okay? And then don't lie in the sun. Again, advice about why you should keep, your skin's exposure to the sun. Use it, but don't overdo it. Okay, you need to make vitamin D, but too much sun is dangerous. Okay, take exercise every day. This one's a given. Obviously, for being healthy, you have to exercise. Okay, and finally, go to bed early twice a week. Again, tips on why you should go to bed early and what happens to the people that sleep early. Okay? Now, let's go to exercise C. Here we have work in groups of 5. Okay? Choose one piece of advice from the text here and find the key information and make notes under the headings opposite. So we have topic, general, advice, research results, who said, when, and my opinion, right? So this will be entirely up to you, but I'll take one. So for example, I'll take go to bed early twice a week. So the topic here is obviously sleep, right? And the general advice, I'll say that you should try to sleep 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours daily, right? If you're an adult, you should try to sleep 7 to 8 hours daily, okay? So research results, obviously, let's talk a little bit about the research. We know that, if you're tired, you are less efficient. This is proven by research. And if you're less efficient, that means that you won't be able to perform actions as well as you would if you're well rested, right? So who said that? How can I not, how do I take this research seriously? Well, I'll tell you why, because it was conducted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, right, in the United States of America. When was it conducted? In 1999. Now, what is my personal opinion on sleep and going to bed early in general? Well, I'd say here that the advice here is not the best, right? So go to bed early twice a week. I don't think that's solid advice. I think you should try your best to get the minimum amount of hours for adults every day. I know it sounds weird at first, but your body has a circadian rhythm, right? So what your circadian rhythm is your biological clock that tells you when to sleep and when it releases the necessary hormones to make you either sleepy or wide awake. That is why you'll notice that, let's say for example, you need an afternoon nap. If you notice, if you go in the streets, right, if you go and take a walk, for example, in the sun, you'll quickly notice that you no longer feel tired. It's called the magic of the sun, because your body knows that, hey, if the sun's out, that means that it's not time to sleep. Okay? So again, my personal opinion is try to make a habit to go to bed early. It'll certainly help you, especially later in life, and you'll just feel so much better. Nobody wants to wake up feeling groggy and tired and all the nonsense like don't talk to me before coffee and all of those memes that you guys see all over the internet. You don't need to go through that if you just go to bed early, or at the very least, set up your schedule so that it best fits your bedtime. Okay? So that was my opinion. Yours might differ. Anyway, now let's go to exercise D. Read the skills check. Here we have skills check, doing research. Alright, so you're gonna notice in university is that you'll be talking about a lot of researches, right? So questions might come up like who said and when. And just so you know, that obviously you should know by now that the internet is a good place to find information, okay? But you always gotta ask yourself, is it true, right? Is what I'm reading right now, like, what differentiates between a BuzzFeed website, right? An article on BuzzFeed and a study from Harvard, right? You gotta understand the source. I mean, if it's BuzzFeed, then you'll take it with a grain of salt, but if it's from Harvard, then you know that, hey, this is the real deal. Okay? So you always got to ask yourself, what is the source of what I'm reading? In this case, it's research. It's research, right? And if it's new, right? One thing a lot of people don't notice is the date of the research that we're talking about. Okay? Is there newer information? Because newer information is most of the times better, right? So in this case, we have a research from 1999. That's quite a long time ago, right? So, what is there better information? If I can't find that then this is the best one I've got. But if I have more recent research, then hey, I think I'll stick to the newer version. Okay? So newer information is often better. Always ask yourself about the date. Okay? And simply ask yourself for the final question, is this actual research or just statements from people? Okay? You got to be able to differentiate between research and statements. Okay? So again, one more time, when doing research, especially on the internet, okay, you got to ask yourself, what is the source, if it's true or not, right? Also, what is the date? Is it really old? Is it newer, right? Because we know that newer information is often better. And finally, is this actual research or just statements? Okay? Now let's go to exercise E. Read your text again. Do you believe it? I personally do. Read your text again. This has your opinion and your stuff. Do you actually believe it? Okay? Work in topic groups. Find other students with the same advice and compare your notes. Right, so if you're in class, find other students that have the same advice as you, right? And basically a similar opinion, and compare notes and talk to each other, right? Now, ask about other advice, explain new words. Alright, so I'm going to change this up. So we have some words in the topic here that you guys should know the meaning of, right? So words like, simple words like smoke, the word harms, right? All of these are things that you should know, okay? So in terms of topic, things like smoke, harms, what does the word, for example, the word teeth? I'm pretty sure all of us know what teeth is, right? So whenever you're reading a topic, always, if you can't figure out what a word means by some of the techniques that I showed you guys before in this course, right? Mainly the way that you read, continue reading, and if you still don't get it, obviously look before and after, like we said, and if you still don't know, then hey, I think it's a good idea to write it down so you don't forget it, right? And go on the internet and find out what it means, and always correct your pronunciation. If you've been pronouncing it wrong, make sure you correct it, right? So this is smoking, not smoking, for example. Some people might say that, so you always gotta correct yourself. Okay? So I think that's about it. That was reading, you guys. Now let's move on. Alright, you guys, so now let's move on to lesson 5, writing and grammar. Here we have 2 photographs, right? Looks like it's about smoking, and we have one that says you mustn't smoke and one that says you shouldn't smoke around children. Right. So does anybody know the difference between must or mustn't and should and shouldn't? Well, let me break it down to you. Must or mustn't is used when there's an obligation, right? An obligation or something that is not permitted, right? So in this case, right, smoking, we know that smoking is not permitted, right? So again, using the word must is used when there's an obligation or simply something that is not permitted, and in this case, it's smoking, okay? While words like should or shouldn't are used to give advice, right? You're simply giving advice. You're not straight up saying, hey, this is not permitted. You're just giving advice. Or you're simply saying that, hey, something is a good or a bad idea. There is simply no law that says you cannot smoke around children, but hey, most of us know that it's a bad idea. It's a bad thing to do, especially around children. Okay? So again, one more time, using words like must and mustn't, they're used when there's an obligation, right? Or something I know is not permitted. I'm 100% certain, right? But words like should or shouldn't are used to simply give advice, right? Hey, I just want to let you know that this is a bad idea or a good idea, okay? There is no sacred law that says you cannot smoke, in this case around children, but all of us know that this is a bad idea, okay? Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have, let me actually open this first. We have Alfie is very unhealthy. He is at the doctor's. Complete the doctor's advice. Use should or shouldn't and some of the verbs in the box. Again, we're going to use should and shouldn't. That means that the doctor is giving him advice, but it's not bad. I mean, hey, what he might be doing is bad, but he's telling him that it's a bad idea. He's not giving it to him 100% like, hey, this is not permitted. You're not permitted to eat burgers anymore or smoke or exercise or whatever, okay? So 1, you dash smoking. Alright, so we know that Alfie is unhealthy. So we'll say you should, right, stop from right here. You should stop smoking, right? 2, you dash so many burgers. I'm guessing he eats a lot of burgers. So we'll say you shouldn't, right, shouldn't eat so, oh, we have it. So you shouldn't eat so many burgers, okay? Then we have 3, you dash more exercise. We'll say you should take more exercise. Means you should exercise more, okay? You should take more exercise. You dash TV all day. We'll say you shouldn't watch, right? We have watch right here. You shouldn't watch TV all day. And finally, F, we'll say dash more water. So we'll say you should drink more water. Okay? So again, we have you should stop smoking. You shouldn't eat so many burgers. You should take more exercise. You shouldn't watch TV all day. You should drink more water. Okay? Now let's move on to exercise C. Here we have give advice to a person visiting your hometown, sorry. Right, so again, this will be up to you, but hey, we're giving advice, so that means we're going to use should or shouldn't. Since I like people to visit places, I'll use should. So we have an example. You should visit the cathedral. It's beautiful. If we're talking about the United States, I'll probably say you should visit the Hollywood sign, or we could also say you should hike near the Hollywood sign. It's gorgeous, right? We could also say, if we're talking about Egypt, for example, we could say you should see the Egyptian pyramids, right? Again, hey, it's fantastic. No, fantastic's not the right word here. We'll say it's magnificent, for example. That's a better word. Okay? So again, use your own advice and things that are popular in your hometown. Now let's go to exercise D. Match the sentence beginnings with the sentence endings. Right. So here we have, if you live in a hot country, you can drink less water, you can't learn to drive, you shouldn't drive, you increase the chance of heart disease, or you need more water? We'll obviously say that if you live in a hot country, you need more water, right? If you live in a cooler country, you can drink less water. Literal opposites. If you're under 17, you can't learn to drive. If you're very tired, right, you shouldn't drive. Okay? So again, if you're very tired, you shouldn't drive. If you eat a lot of red meat, you increase the chance of heart disease. Okay? So one more time. If you live in a hot country, you need more water. If you live in a cooler country, you can drink less water. If you're under 17, you can't learn to drive. If you're very tired, you shouldn't drive. Excuse me. And if you eat a lot of red meat, you increase the chance of heart disease. Okay. Now let's go to exercise E. Study the completed sentences in exercise D and answer the questions. By the way, guys, let's take a look at table 2 and table 3 here. We have conditionals expressing fact. So if a sentence looks like this to you guys, if you live in a hot country, you need more water, for example, right, with the comma here. This is a conditional expressing a fact. A fact is something that you absolutely need or have to do, okay? You need less water if you live in a hot country. This is, again, a conditional expressing fact, but it's the other way around. You notice how here we said, if you live in a hot country, you need more water with a comma? Well, if it's the opposite, then we won't need the use of a comma anymore, or we won't need to use comma. So you need less water if you live in a hot country. Right, so how does all of this come together? Let's go to exercise E. We have study the completed sentences in exercise D and answer the questions. So what do all the sentences in exercise D have in common? Well, like we said, they are all conditional structures, just like table 2 and 3. Meaning they all have a condition clause and a result or effect clause. Okay? Do the sentences express fact or possibility? Like we said, in this case, they're all expressing fact, right? They simply state something that people know is true. Okay, so it's not a possibility, it's a fact here. And I'll touch a little bit more in a minute about possibility. Question 3, can the beginnings and endings be the other way around? Like we said, yes. And actually, they're frequently expressed the other way around. Okay, so for example, if I say, you can't learn to drive if you're under 17, this is the natural way that I can say it. Instead of saying, if you live in a hot country, comma, you need more water. No, if I just say, you need less water if you live in a hot country. Or in this case, you need more water if you live in a hot country. Okay, no need for a comma. All right, now let's go to exercise F. Again, a similar exercise, but different style. So here we have exercise F. Match the sentence beginnings with the sentence. Yep, okay. So if you smoke near children, right, we'll probably say they may copy you, right? If you join a gym, yep, that one's right. You will feel healthier. If you're in a plane crash, you probably won't survive. This one works. Wow, what a way. If you keep food too long, what will happen, you guys? It will go bad, right? If you eat too much unhealthy food, you will probably get fat. This one's a given. If you lie in the sun for too long, you may develop skin cancer. Yes, that's correct. Okay? Excuse me. Now let's go to exercise G. Again, study the completed sentences in exercise F and answer the questions. Okay? So remember the answers from exercise F. Now let's take a look at the questions. What do these sentences have in common? The exact same question that was asked back in exercise E. Well, in this case, we'll say that, again, same answer. They are all conditional structures, right? Okay? They all have a condition clause and a result or effect clause. Okay? Question number 2, sorry. Do the sentences express fact or possibility? Okay, so listen here. Let's actually read it one more time, or actually let's take a look at table 4. If you lie in the sun, you will probably develop skin cancer, or you may develop skin cancer. What does the word probably, the word will, or may mean? Well, this expresses possibility, so it's not a fact. Hey, you may develop skin cancer. Hey, but it's not a fact. It's not a given. It's only a possibility. Just like smoking, right? You may develop lung cancer, but hey, it's not a fact. It's a very high chance, but it's not a fact. It's only a possibility after all. Okay? So in this case, we'll say they all express possibility, right? In this case, a future result. By the way, sometimes the possibility has the function of giving advice or a warning, like we just said by giving the smoking example. 3. Can the beginnings and endings be the other way around? Yes, they can be expressed the other way around, but unlike the other exercise, this way is not so common. Why? Because the tendency is to express the condition clause and the result clause, so that it usually has a lot more impact on people. Question 4. When do we use will and when do we use may? Very interesting question. So, when do we use will and when do we use may? Well, we use will, right, when we are sure of a result or when making a confident prediction, okay? So, if I say, you will probably develop, or if I say, just forget about probably for now, you will develop skin cancer, right? You are sure of a result, or you're making a very confident prediction, okay? So again, if you say use the word will, then in this case you are very sure of the result, or you're making a confident prediction. What about the word may? Well, we use the word may when we're not so sure, or when expressing pure possibility in this case. If you don't stop smoking, you may develop lung cancer, right? I'm not making a confident prediction here. I'm either expressing pure possibility, or I'm adding something that I'm less sure about. I'm not 100% certain about. Okay? Question 5, very good question. Why do we add probably to some sentences? Well, we add the word probably, like you hear me a lot of the time say it in this course, or have heard me say it a lot, is we add probably to make a confident prediction slightly less sure, right? Like, for example, if you're almost 100% certain, but you're not quite there yet, that's where the adverb probably comes in, right? So instead of saying, if you lie in the sun, you will develop skin cancer, I'll add probably, so it'll be, if you lie in the sun, you will probably develop skin cancer. Now, this makes it from 100% to more like a 75%, okay? So again, one way to look at this, right, is using the word may, like we said. May is at around 50%, right? The word will is at 100%, and will probably is at a 75%. But just keep in mind that this is a very simple way of understanding the three words, and that you shouldn't use these as your only style in writing, okay? So yeah, that was exercise G. Now let's go to exercise H. We have complete each sentence with a possibility. Right, so if you drive and you're tired, if you want to complete each sentence with a possibility, we'll say, I'll say, if you drive when you're tired, you'll probably make more mistakes, right? It's a possibility after all. I could also say if you drive when you're tired, you may cause an accident. You see how I've used both the word probably and may in two different examples. Let's go to number 2. If you eat a lot of fruit and salad, you'll stay healthy, right? 3. If Tommy eats only burgers and chips, he'll get fat. We could also say he'll get spots, okay? Or, I have another example. If Tommy eats only burgers and chips, he may have a heart attack, right? So this way I used the word may, will, both, okay? In two different examples. If Tracy doesn't do any exercise, we'll say she'll get fat, or we'll also say she'll be unhealthy. One more. If Tracy doesn't do any exercise, she may get ill. Funny how that works. Okay? So that was exercise H, a simple exercise, okay? Adding to the stuff that we just talked about. Now let's read about washing your hands and complete the column with notes. Right, so let's read here. We have wash your hands with soap. Many health problems start with germs. However, soap kills germs, so you should wash your hands after using the toilet. If you wash your hands with soap, you will kill billions of germs. Research has shown that regular washing could save 1 million lives a year. Again, this research was done by London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in 2003. Remember when we talked about research? Okay? Read the notes about brushing your teeth and write a text. Alright, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's write a similar notes to brushing your teeth here. So the topic will say wash your hands with soap. For general advice, we'll say many health problems, and we'll give a line indicating that it's caused by germs, right? We'll also say that soap kills germs. So, wash your hands with soap, and if people wash hands, it'll kill billions of germs, okay? What about research results? We'll say, you know what? We'll say that, hey, we'll say regular washing saves or could save 1 million lives per year. Okay? Who said that? Again, like we said, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. When did they say it? 2003. Okay? Now we have a very similar style to the notes that we just wrote down, and we need to write a text about it, similar to this one right here. So we have, again, brush your teeth after eating and drinking. That's the topic, right? Many health problems, germs. Toothpaste kills germs, so brush after eating/drinking. If food and teeth, it'll go bad. Use a soft toothbrush and brush 3 minutes, because most people brush for only 1 minute. Who said that? The American Dental Association. When did they say it? In 2005. Okay. So I'll give you an example of a text that I wrote before I started this recording, but you could write your own if you want. Okay? So we'll start with the topic. So brush your teeth after eating and drinking. I could say that many health problems start with germs. However, toothpaste kills germs, so you should brush your teeth after eating or drinking. If you leave food in your teeth, they will go bad. Research has shown that you should use a soft toothbrush. You should brush for 3 minutes. Most people only brush for 1 minute. The American Dental Association, 2005. Okay, so that was a text. You can write it out just like I did, or write your own. It's fine. Okay, so that was writing, you guys. Now let's move on. Right, you guys, now moving on to lesson 6, writing and grammar. Here we have exercise A. Put ticks in the correct columns. Sometimes you need to tick both columns. Right, so let's see what all of this is about. So here we have table 1, here we have some words, right? And we're gonna tick what is it used with. Is it used with countable and uncountable? You just gotta know that sometimes the words here could be used for both countable and uncountable, okay? So let's start with the word is. Do we use the word is with countable or uncountable, you guys? That's correct, we use the word is with uncountable, right? Is milk cheap? Is cheese tasty? Okay? Are. Are is the exact opposite. We use are with countable nouns. Okay? Much, this one's a no-brainer, uncountable. Many, countable. What about the word some? Well, some, depending on how you're going to use it, can be used with both countable and uncountable. Then we have, again, how much. So how much is going to be used with uncountable, how many with countable, right? What about a lot? Well, we could use a lot with both countable and uncountable. A few, so we could use a few with countable. A little with uncountable, right? More could be used with both countable and uncountable. Less, uncountable. Fewer, exact opposite, countable. And finally, too much and too many. Again, too much used with uncountable and too many with countable nouns. Okay, so these were the words. Now let's go to exercise A2. Tick the correct sentences and correct the wrong ones. Okay, so how many homeworks does your teacher give you? Is this correct, you guys? Well, no, it's not, because homework is an uncountable noun, right? So we'll change many here, many, to much, right? So how much homework, we'll get rid of the S here, right? Let me add these two together, save. So how much homework does your teacher give you? Okay, so again, the word homework is an uncountable noun, okay? I don't have much money for my holiday. That's correct, because money, we used much here because money is an uncountable noun. People in China eat more rice than people in Europe. Again, that's true, and it's correct. People in China eat less potatoes than people in Europe. Well, less here is wrong. We'll say fewer. Okay? So the word fewer. Okay? Because potatoes is a countable noun. So people in China eat fewer potatoes than people in Europe. Let me take these two as correct. You only need to put a few salt in the soup. Well, a few here is actually wrong. We'll use the word little, right? Little. Why did I use the word little? Because I used little with an uncountable noun, and salt is obviously not uncountable. So you only need to put a little salt in the soup. Too many people use mobile phones when they're driving. This one is correct. Okay? So one more time. How much homework does your teacher give you? Right? I don't have much money for my holiday. People in China eat more rice than people in Europe. People in China eat fewer potatoes than people in Europe. You only need to put a little salt in the soup. And too many people use mobile phones when they're driving. Okay? So that was exercise A. Now let's go to exercise B. Here we have, what do we have here? Look again at the graph from lesson 2. You guys remember this graph here? The one that we talked about, and we talked about the different words that we could use to talk about the graph. So complete the first part of the report with one word in each space. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the words that we learned throughout this unit, any in these spaces here. So let's start. Here we have the graph shows how dash people per 100,000 people in New York got food poisoning. So we'll say the graph shows how, I'll say many, right? Many because people, countable noun. The graph shows how many people per 100,000 people in New York got food poisoning each year between 1996 and 2008. Cases of food poisoning, what can I say? Dash over the complete period. Well, I could say the word fell, remember fell, or I could say decreased. So personally, I'll say decreased over the complete period. But dash again from 2005 to 2008. So I could either say rose, right, past of rise, or increased. So I'll say increased again from 2005 to 2008. Between 1996 and 1999, there was a dash fall. We'll say there was a sharp, right? Sharp fall, and you can look here again. Where were we? Between 1996 and 1999, right? This is a sharp fall right here. Sharp fall in the number of poisoning cases in the city. Between 1999 and 2000, what happened? 1999, I think this is considered a slight rise. So we'll say slight rise in the number of cases. Then between 2000 and 2001, the number of cases fell again. Okay? So one more time, we used words like decreased, increased, sharp, and slight to determine the movement of the graph over the years, or between two specific years. Okay? Now let's read it one more time, and then we'll write the second part of this report. So the graph shows how many people per 100,000 people in New York got food poisoning each year between 1996 and 2008. Cases of food poisoning decreased over the complete period, but increased again from 2005 to 2008. Between 1996 and 1999, there was a sharp fall in the number of food poisoning cases in the city. Between 1999 and 2000, there was a slight rise in the number of cases. Then, between 2000 and 2001, the number of cases fell again. Okay, so now in the next part, or in the second part of the report, we want to talk about the graph from 2001 to around 2008. So how will we structure our words to write a good model report here? We could say between 2001 and 2002, right? The number of cases of food poisoning, and I'll use the word rose, right? Past of rise, rose very sharply. Right here, as you can see, rose very sharply. Then the number fell again, right? I'm not saying anything weird here. It's all from the graph. Then the number fell again. Okay? Between 2002 and 2003, the number fell dramatically, right? Then, between 2003, let's skip a year here. Let's go to straight to 2005. We'll say it fell more gradually, right? There's a bit more consistency, but it fell more gradually. Between 2005 and 2008, the number of cases, we'll say, rose again gradually to the end of the period. Okay? So that was exercise B. Now let's move on. Anything specific here? No. Alright, so let's go to exercise C. Here we have read the sentences, circle the correct word or phrase in each case. So here we have Tina eats too much or too many chocolate. Too much. Obviously, chocolate is uncountable. Less, fewer, people, by the way, just before we move on, chocolate here could be used as a countable noun like we said before, but in this case, it's too much. Fewer people eat red meat these days. We'll say fewer. I like many or a lot of sugar in my tea. We'll say I like a lot of sugar in my tea. Would you like a piece of cakes or cake? Obviously cake. You shouldn't eat or to eat too many burgers. We'll say you shouldn't eat. You can't vote if you are not 18. If you will not be 18. If you are not 18 is the correct one. If you smoke or if you will smoke, you may develop lung cancer. If you smoke is correct. If you develop lung cancer, probably you will or you will probably die. We'll say you will probably die. Okay? So one more time. Tina eats too much chocolate. Fewer people eat red meat these days. I like a lot of sugar in my tea. Would you like a piece of cake? You shouldn't eat too many burgers. You can't vote if you are not 18. If you smoke, you may develop lung cancer. If you develop lung cancer, you will probably die. Okay? So that was exercise C, circling the correct word. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this course, and have a good one. Peace out.